This is probably the most requested video on this Schneider inverter, and I'm so excited to bring it to you. This is gonna be the load test video. We're gonna load this up, and not just at 6.8 kilowatts, because yeah, it can do that. We're gonna overload this. We're gonna test its overload specifications written in the manual. Now, the manual says that this can do 8.5 kilowatts for 30 minutes, 12 kilowatts for an entire minute. I mean, that's incredible. And then there's additional specifications for load imbalance testing, which again, we're gonna test. I'm super excited for this video, but it has been a long endeavor. It has actually taken 2 weeks just filming to make sure that I hit all the parameters in the manual. And this thing is very impressive. Hi, I'm David, and I'm on a mission to take my entire house and garage off-grid. I'm currently testing out this Schneider inverter to see if it can handle the loads. And so far, it's been working awesome. Now, it's a 6.8 kilowatt rated inverter. Now, that's its continuous rating, but I have been pushing this thing up over 8 kilowatts every single day, and it has not disappointed. I've been running my house now for well over a month, I think almost 2 months at this point. And it just keeps on going. So we're gonna go through the parameters in the manual. We're gonna test this thing. I've also thrown on a bunch of tools. Now there is one set of parameters in the manual where I felt the inverter fell a little bit short, and that was on the load imbalance testing. But I will dive into that in great detail, and all of you can tell me if it was really the inverter's fault or probably more likely my fault. If there's any testing that you feel I missed and you'd like to see in a future video, please let me know in the comments below. Now for the fun part. We're gonna load this up. The manual says that this inverter can handle 8.5 kilowatts for 30 minutes. Now that's an incredibly long duration of an overload. So I've hooked up a bunch of different loads on this load center. I've got some water heaters and some buckets and some light bulbs, and I've been mixing and matching, and I think I've got it dialed in as close as I can to 8.5 kilowatts. And as you can see, we're lit up about 8.5, and we'll start that timer. And now we'll just let this run. 11 minutes down. 8.53 kilowatts, and we are still rolling at 20 minutes. And 30 minutes. Yes! That is the specification. Yeah! We hit it! 30 minutes! Woo! We'll see how long this can actually go. So at 42 minutes into it, we finally have an event light kicking on here. So let's say you've got a bunch of loads on in the house and you're running at 7 kilowatts, and then you turn on your microwave, it jumps up to 8.5. Well, you're probably not running your microwave for 43 minutes. So you're fine. There we go. All right. That was incredible. 47 minutes. Oh, crazy. Hey, we're back for the next test where we are going to try to hit 12 kilowatts for a minute. So all 4 of these space heaters are rolling. So let's turn this on, and as soon as I do, I'm going to go over. All right, that's rolling, and let's turn on this and this. There we go. 12 kilowatts. It's supposed to be able to do this for 1 minute. Let's see if it can pull it off. We don't have the event light yet. 1 minute. Nice. Ha. So it was able to do 12 kilowatts for an entire minute. And we've got our event light. Here we go. And there might have been maybe 4 seconds or so there we go. Ha. It did it. Well, roughly that was about 1 minute and 12 seconds before it shut off, and that is just so impressive. That this thing, I can't believe that it did that. That's awesome. Wow. Longtime viewers of this channel will know that I love testing inverters with my big 12-inch DeWalt compound miter saw. And it's a beast. It's tough to get going. It has a high surge. And I know already that this can handle it no problem. I have run a bunch of power tools over the last month using this inverter, but let's go ahead and show everybody just how easily this inverter can start these saws. Now this is a big heavy chunk of oak. It's my favorite piece of wood to test on this miter saw when we do this test. So currently we have, I'm sorry my son's in the background, he wants to be running the saw, but he can't. Let me grab my glasses. So first test, we're running this and there's no other load on the inverter. All right, so as you can see, we got through it just as if we were on grid, cut through the oak. Now let's start another load. Come on in. So this is the water heater. We'll turn that on. And we've got 4.5 kilowatts on the inverter. All right, got our nice little bread for our sandwich here. Our big 240 volt space heater. Turn that on. Now we're up at 9.3 kilowatts. I don't even know if the miter saw is going to start. It might trip this thing. We'll find out. All right, so I was really pushing it because I wanted to see if I could get the inverter to trip, and I pushed it too hard, too fast, and it snagged the wood. But it's still running 9.3 whatever kilowatts, and it powered up this 15 amp saw. The fact that it did it is amazing. I have, in past videos, I put this on an amp meter and found that the starting surge on this is 67 amps. I'm actually really surprised. I mean, first off, we're overloaded at 9.3 because this is a 6.8 kilowatt rated inverter. and it did it. Let's do it one more time. It's still running. I went a little bit slower that time so as not to make the wood jump, and it did it. I'm really impressed. When I introduced the Schneider inverter, I had a lot of people write in asking me to demonstrate running a welder on it. So I'll be running my FlexCore welder from Harbor Freight. This is a 120 volt welder, and its maximum draw is 23 amps from the wall. Now I'm going to crank the knobs up here so we have the voltage, and when I crank that, it should pull its maximum possible amps from the wall. Now we are running the entire property off-grid at the moment, and I know that my wife's inside the home and she's, I think we have the dishwasher running, and I don't know if she, might kick on her hairdryer or something while we're running this experiment. We're just living, and so I'm not controlling the loads. I'm just gonna see if it can take it. And this heavy-duty extension cord is plugged in over at the inverter. Now, I'm not a good welder at all. I'm happy if I just get the two pieces of metal to stick together. So please don't expect any master craftsmanship from me. Well, this is a big chunk of metal, I think from a railroad track, and then this is a 3/8 inch plate, and we'll just try to stick these two pieces together. In fact, right now, we're at 3.29 kilowatts. Now this is L1, and I was plugged in with my heavy duty extension cord to L1, and we still powered it up. So we were already at 17 amps, and I threw on another up to 23 amps while starting at least, and it did it. Now, having used my tools on this inverter and using my tools on grid, I can tell you there is absolutely no felt difference between the two. I can cut through the material just as quickly on this inverter as I can on the grid. Now we're going to get into the load imbalance testing. Now, this one I'm really excited about. This is where a transformer-based inverter is really going to shine. These things shine on surges and load imbalance. If you purchase a transformer-less inverter, one without a transformer in it, then you're really going to be limited to just half of its rated capacity per leg. I have just set up a whole bunch of 120 volt loads, and we've got our breaker box open. I've got these meters demonstrating L1 and L2 and all of this to test the load imbalance function of our inverter. Now these meters have little CTs, current transformers internally, so the wire coming from the inverter to the load panel is passing through these, and we'll be able to see things like the power factor and voltage and wattage. This inverter is rated for 6.8 kilowatts continuous. If this was a transformer-less design, we'd be limited to half of that rating, or 3.4 kilowatts per leg, regardless of what the other leg is doing. But given that we have that nice big transformer built in, we can go well over that per leg. I'm pulling some information from the operation manual, which I'm referencing on screen, and I will leave a link in the description below if you'd like to go check it out yourself. Now it says that you can have up to 40 amps or 4,800 watts on a single leg with nothing on the other. And that's pretty incredible. Now I tested that and I ran it over an hour before shutting off the test, and it worked. It went great. I hooked up some water heaters, and there we go. So as you can see, we've got 40.6 amps. And over here, let's start our test. Here we go. Now this says 4.95, so we're a little bit off on this, but not quite. See, this says 5,000 watts, and we're just over 40 amps. Oh, excellent. We passed the 1 hour mark. Woo! We did it. This thing is still going, and it hasn't shut down. A little bit over 40 amps on one leg with almost nothing on the other leg. Huge imbalance here. Over a 40 amp imbalance, and it was able to do it for over an hour. Yes! After testing that 40 amp continuous, or 4,800 watts continuous on a single leg, I was really excited for the overload testing of it. That was just the continuous rating. Now the manual has a graph to show the overload capacity on a single leg that says that you can run 6,300 watts on a single leg for 30 minutes, 8,800 watts on a single leg for 5 minutes, and 12 kilowatts on a single leg for 1 minute. I was not able to reach those parameters. The inverter was shutting off a little bit too early. Now here's my actual test and the data that I captured with a couple of space heaters like that. And I'm going to turn on this circuit breaker, which is going to power the water heaters, but I'm going to leave the camera over here watching this. See, we're at 56.5 amps. We're still running it currently, but I believe we're going to shut down here in a few seconds. and it shut off. Let's go over here, and we have F64. That means L1 AC overload. And now it just automatically turns back on after, what was that? That was only a few seconds it was off, maybe 10 seconds. Now I read the manual, and if it has the same fault 3 times within 5 minutes, then it will go into a manual fault. It will just completely shut off, and you have to manually come out here to restart it. I want to throw even more stuff on here. So we're gonna turn on these 2 heaters, and I'm gonna turn on these 2 circuit breakers. So we're gonna get even more load on it. There we go. As you can see, 65.78 amps. And it shut off faster. All right, let's turn those off. And again, F64, and it should restart. And there we go. So 52 amps for the 1 minute mark on one leg. Last night we showed that 40 amps can run continuously, or at least for 1 hour, that I ran the duration of the test. So let's do something in between 40 amps and 52 amps. And we got 47, and what if we throw this on? There we go. So 47.73 amps, or 5,900 watts. Let's start this. And there we go. All right, it just shut off. F.64 is an AC overload on L1. And that was at 4 minutes and 20 seconds. 4 minutes and 20 seconds is our time at about 47.7 amps. So this is really awesome testing. We're dialing it in. And start. I just started another test. We've got 44.7 amps on L1 and nothing on L2. So we will see how long this can run. Just gonna let this go. All right, 37 minutes in, and the event light just started flashing. Just been hanging out around here at 44.78, and it just shut off. So 37 minutes, and it shut off. I just finished the load imbalance testing. This has been the most confusing part. In the manual, it says that you can load up one leg to 40 amps, and it can run continuously. Now I tested that, and it worked. Now the manual has a graph to show the overload capacity on a single leg that says that you can run 6,300 watts on a single leg for 30 minutes, 8,800 watts on a single leg for 5 minutes, and 12 kilowatts on a single leg for 1 minute. I was not able to reach those parameters. The inverter was shutting off a little bit too early. Now here's my actual test and the data that I captured. Now when I couldn't hit those parameters in the manual, I assumed that I'm probably interpreting the manual wrong, or I'm running my test wrong, or something like that. So I called Schneider. Actually, I called them twice and had some emails back and forth with them. And they insist that the inverter can do it once I update the firmware. Now I haven't updated the firmware yet. I'm running this inverter straight out of the box. So as soon as I install the Insight Home, I will then be able to update the firmware on the inverter, and I'll run the test again after that. And we'll see if the load imbalance improves. Please let me know in the comments below what you think might have happened. I personally think that it's still very impressive. Now, hitting that 52 amps for 1 minute on a single leg, which is what I did, to me that makes a lot of sense. Having the 52 amp limit per leg in the transformer and in the terminal block, and the traces on the PCB and all those things. I feel like they probably have that physical limitation of how many amps they can handle. But, you know, it might just be a firmware update issue. And maybe those traces and wires and terminal blocks, maybe they can all handle that 100 amps per leg. And again, I'd like to reiterate that I'm running this as 120/240 volts. So I did not install those jumpers. I didn't change the firmware. I'm not running this in 120 volt only. So that third column in the table, I'm Xing that out. I'm not running those parameters. So I'm not expecting those conditions. I'm strictly trying to test this as a single leg imbalance. And so I thought maybe the graph was written with some parameters from one or another or something, I don't know. Again, I called Schneider and have some emails with them, and so I've got it in writing that they insist that as soon as I update the firmware on this, I should be able to pull the numbers off of the graph. I should be able to get that like 8,800 watts for 5 minutes on a single leg. So once I update the firmware, we'll retest it and try it again. Well, there you have it, everybody. This thing is a beast. Now, running it for almost 2 months, running my entire house and garage, it has not failed once. Now, it has overloaded during my testing because I forced that. But once it overloaded, it automatically turned back on after a few seconds and kept powering the loads. Thank you everybody so much for watching. This was a lot of fun to test, but it was exhausting. It took a very long time. So you could really help out the channel if you hit that like and subscribe button, share the video if you can, and if you want to purchase any of the equipment that you see, please go ahead and check out the links in the description below. Those affiliate links really do help out the channel. Thank you, everybody.